It's moving pretty fast in the Middle East. Things are moving towards a disaster pretty quickly. The process that started with Hamas's attacks on October 7th last year has continued with Israel's counterattacks. The attack started in Gaza but then spread to the West Bank, Lebanon, Yemen, Iran, Iraq, and Syria. All these events are creating a snowball effect that will lead to chaos in the region. It's a different world in the Middle East today. What we knew in the past is being replaced by new, dangerous realities that we don't recognize. Most recently, Iran's attack on October 1st with 181 ballistic missiles aimed at Israel has really shifted the balance of power in the region. Israel has vowed to retaliate for this attack. There's one thing to keep in mind, though. The need for revenge is tied to Iran's past humiliations. Iran has been responding to the attacks it has long endured. Israel, on the other hand, is facing an unfamiliar situation. Israel is ready to mobilize all its resources in response to even the slightest threat. Israel's air defense systems were shown to be vulnerable in the wake of Iran's attack on October 1st. Hamas had already shown this weakness. It's worth noting that thousands of ordinary rockets managed to breach Israel's Iron Dome defense system. On top of that, lots of drones and rockets launched by Hezbollah entered Israeli territory. What's more, missiles fired from Yemen can reach Tel Aviv from 2,000 kilometers away, and the effective missiles used by Iran in these attacks may carry nuclear warheads. Israel's perception of its invulnerability was shattered by Iran's attack on October 1st. Israel had believed it was invulnerable, and its self-protection was almost divine. However, this attack shook that understanding and fundamentally affected Israel's defense doctrine. While Israel keeps up its heavy air and ground assaults on Lebanon, it's also putting together a major retaliation plan against Iran. Some commentators think this attack could happen on the anniversary of Hamas's October 7th assault. Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu made a point of emphasizing the importance of this attack, stating, "Iran made a big mistake and will pay the price." These statements are on a lot of Israelis' minds. Some see this as a chance for Israel and its allies to attack Iran. Former ministers, prime ministers, and intellectuals all agree that this attack will be deadly and massive. However, some say that such an attack would have disastrous consequences not just for Iran but for the whole region, the United States, and even the world. One of the most notable comments on this topic came from U.S. President Joe Biden. Israel's targets can be grouped into four main categories: oil and gas facilities, refineries, pipelines, and related economic infrastructure, military command centers, control centers, and air bases, missile and drone storage and production facilities, nuclear facilities, including strike sites that are part of Iran's nuclear program. There's been a lot of concern in the American political arena about Israel's planned targets for Iran. Democrats, along with Biden and Kamala Harris, are particularly concerned about this situation. If Israel launches a major attack, it could cause chaos that affects the entire world. It looks like the Democratic Party and its candidate, Harris, are going to be the ones who take the heat for this. Some say the Democrats have lost votes because of the Gaza issue, particularly in a few key states. Given all this, some people think that Muslim and Arab votes could have a big impact on the election results. Biden said he was the most effective president in helping Israel, saying, "No administration has helped Israel as much as mine." This was a reminder to Netanyahu. Biden gave Israel everything it wanted, including tons of bombs dropped on Gaza and Lebanon, which were American-made. There's some debate as to whether Biden wanted to provide this aid. Netanyahu is also aware of this. Biden doesn't make decisions on his own. There are lots of other people involved, including members of Congress, the Senate, and the House of Representatives. Biden and Netanyahu haven't always seen eye to eye in the past. However, after the attack on October 7th, the Israeli government under Netanyahu underwent a restructuring. The war has helped to reduce some of the internal divisions. As Americans try to keep a balance between Netanyahu's influence and other factors, Biden is entering a new era. When Israel plans to strike Iran, they identify four main categories of targets. These attacks will cause a lot of tension in the region. What's more, an attack on Iran will have repercussions that go beyond just shaking up the region. It will also have global implications. If Iran is hit with such an attack, it won't just affect its own territory. It'll also impact neighboring countries. In particular, if Iran's energy infrastructure were to be attacked, it would create a major crisis. Iran is a major player in the global oil and gas market. Other countries like Turkey rely on Iran to meet this need. Given the sanctions, it's unlikely that Iran's energy infrastructure will be able to be rebuilt quickly. The Iranian economy is pretty much tied to two major refineries. If these refineries are attacked, it would cause chaos in Iran. People would take to the streets, and shortages would become apparent. Iran won't stay silent if such an attack happens. On top of that, if Iran were to gain control of key shipping routes like the Bab al-Mandeb Strait and the Strait of Hormuz, it could potentially lead to a major war. These straits are really important for transporting a lot of the world's oil and gas. If Iran blocks these straits, it could cause a major economic crisis for the whole world. This could have a big impact on Egypt, which runs the Suez Canal. In short, an attack on Iran could have a major impact on the region and even the global economy. This tension is like a ticking bomb that could go off at any moment. All these developments show how complex international relations are and how they affect our lives. To sum up, the developments in the Middle East are pushing the entire world into a conflict that affects us all. It's fair to say that we're all keeping an eye on how this conflict will evolve and what the consequences will be. It's important to keep an eye on these issues and talk about them. The Middle East is a complex place, and the changing dynamics there affect us all. In the coming days, how this tension will play out and how the parties involved will navigate it will also have an impact on international politics. As we approach the anniversary of October 7th, we're all watching and waiting to see how this conflict is going to evolve. To understand the global impact of all these developments, countries will need to take another look at their national security policies and foreign relations. In particular, it'll be interesting to see how the United States policies in the Middle East evolve. What's the Biden administration's plan for dealing with Iran? This process will have a big impact on international relations in the coming period. On top of that, how Iran responds to these attacks is going to be really important. If Iran goes after other countries in retaliation, it could make things a lot worse. In particular, the mobilization of militia forces and terrorist organizations in the region could make things more complicated. There's a chance that groups in Iraq, Syria, and Lebanon might get involved too, which could lead to a regional conflict. It's also important to consider how major powers like Russia and China are going to respond to this situation. Both countries are eager to expand their influence in the Middle East, and they're well known for supporting Iran. If these countries step up their support for Iran, it could pose a serious threat to the US and its allies. So it's important to keep an eye on this process and how it affects international power dynamics. What happens in the Middle East in the coming months will have a big impact not just on the countries in the region, but on the whole world. We'll see how this affects energy prices, migration, international trade, and security policies. All this uncertainty could also lead to economic instability and social unrest. In the end, these complex dynamics in the Middle East will make the region more unstable and keep conflicts going. The tensions between Iran and Israel are becoming more than just a bilateral issue. They're a threat to the entire world. It's crucial for the international community to keep a close eye on this and take steps to prevent potential conflicts. Every move we make on international security issues will not only affect the current situation but will also set the stage for what might happen in the future. If we want peace and stability in the Middle East, we need to work together. If we want to reduce tensions in the region and find a lasting solution, we need to work together. In the coming days and months, it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the Middle East and how this process is managed. Given all this, keeping an eye on and studying these complex situations that affect the whole world is not just an academic exercise. It's a process that will determine the future of international relations. It's important to remember that every conflict has a cost, and that can affect not just the people involved but the whole world. There's a chance that the tensions in the Middle East could lead to a larger war in the future. So, this situation is a big test for the people in the region and for the international community. The results of this test will have a big impact not just today, but also in the future. In this context, it'll be interesting to see how things play out in the Middle East. Which countries will take what positions and what strategies will international actors adopt in this process? We'll all be watching with bated breath. It's important for writers and experts in international relations to keep a close eye on these developments and do the necessary analysis. Thanks for watching.